Hello and welcome to English Podcast.
Here you'll find fun topics, natural dialogues, and a relaxed way to practice English every day.
If you enjoy it, leave a like and subscribe. Have you ever felt completely out of your depth, like a fish out of water? That's exactly how I felt walking into the Creative Canvas art class. I mean, my artistic ability peaks at drawing stick figures.
I can totally relate. I remember signing up for a pottery class once, thinking I'd be creating beautiful vases. Instead, I ended up with a lopsided lump of clay that vaguely resembled well, I'm not even sure what it resembled.
Exactly. This art class was a challenge set by my friends. They thought it would be hilarious to see me, Mr. Non-Artistic, try to create a masterpiece. Creative Canvas was this little studio tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. It looked intimidating with its huge windows and displays of impressive artwork.
Oh, I can picture it. Those places always seem so sophisticated, don't they? Full of naturally talented people effortlessly creating amazing things. It can be quite daunting, that initial feeling of, I don't belong here.
Daunting is an understatement. The air inside smelled of oil paints and turpentine. Easels were set up everywhere, and palettes covered in vibrant colors lay scattered around. I felt like I had wandered onto the set of a movie about artists, not an actual class for beginners.
I bet. It's like stepping into a different world, isn't it? Turpentine, by the way, is a strong-smelling liquid used to thin oil paints. It's quite pungent, another word for having a strong smell.
Pungent is right. The smell was almost overwhelming. I was already starting to regret agreeing to this challenge. Then, a woman with bright, paint-splattered overalls and a warm smile approached me. This was our instructor, Ms. Amelia. So, there she was, Sarah, standing in front of a blank canvas. It was huge, almost as tall as she was. She felt a little intimidated, a bit scared, by this vast white space. She had never painted before, not even a little. This art class was a completely new experience.
The teacher, Mr. Garcia, had announced the challenge. Create something that represents freedom. He said it with such passion, such enthusiasm. Freedom, it's a big word, a powerful word. And Sarah wasn't sure what it meant to her. Not really. How could she possibly paint it?
She looked around the room. Other students were already busy. Some were sketching furiously, others were mixing vibrant colors on their palettes. A palette is like a small plate that artists use to hold and mix their paints. Sarah just picked up a brush and stared at it, completely lost.
Suddenly, she remembered something her grandfather used to say. He was a sailor, and he always talked about the freedom of the open sea. Out there, he'd say, with the wind in your sails, you feel truly alive, truly free. And he would gesture with his hands wide, as if embracing the vastness of the ocean.
Sarah closed her eyes, picturing her grandfather on his boat, the salty spray of the waves, the endless blue horizon. The word, horizon, means the line where the sky seems to meet the sea. She could almost feel the wind on her face.
She took a deep breath and dipped her brush into a pot of blue paint. A vibrant, almost electric blue, like the color of the tropical ocean her grandfather described. Hesitantly, she started to make a mark on the canvas. A single, curving line. Then another, and another.
She wasn't thinking anymore, wasn't analyzing or questioning. She was just letting her hand move, guided by the memory of her grandfather's stories, by the feeling of freedom he described. She was letting the brush dance across the canvas.
Slowly, a shape began to emerge. It wasn't perfect, not by any means. But it was hers. A swirling, dynamic shape, like a wave, like the wind, like the feeling of freedom she was starting to understand.
So, to quickly recap, Amelia, our main character, has signed up for a pottery class, even though she's never touched clay in her life. She's feeling a bit intimidated by all the experienced potters, especially the rather smug, know-it-all Barry.
Exactly. And remember, intimidated means she feels a bit scared or nervous because she thinks the others are much better than her. Smug, on the other hand, describes Barry's overly confident and self-satisfied attitude. He thinks he's great.
Right. He's got that annoying air of superiority. Anyway, Amelia has just had her first attempt at making a pot on the wheel, and, well, it didn't go so well. It ended up looking more like a collapsed volcano than a vase.
It was a complete disaster. She felt really discouraged, like she'd never be able to do it. Remember that discouraged means she lost her enthusiasm and motivation. It's the opposite of encouraged. She almost wanted to give up.
But then, something shifted. The teacher, a kind and patient woman named Mrs. Higgins, came over to help Amelia. She explained that pottery takes practice and that everyone starts somewhere.
Mrs. Higgins' encouragement reminded Amelia why she joined the class in the first place, to try something new, to challenge herself. She decided to keep going, to not give up so easily.
So now, Amelia is starting her second attempt. She takes a deep breath, centers the clay on the wheel, and begins to slowly shape it with her hands, trying to remember Mrs. Higgins' instructions. Centering means to make the clay perfectly balanced in the middle of the wheel.
This time, she's focusing intently, really concentrating on the feel of the clay between her fingers. The wheel spins, and the clay starts to take form. It's still a bit wobbly, not quite perfect, but it's definitely better than her first try.
And Barry, of course, is watching her with a slightly condescending look, like he's waiting for her to fail again. Condescending means he's looking down on her, treating her like she's inferior to him.
Amelia notices his gaze and feels a flicker of annoyance. But this time, instead of feeling intimidated, she uses his smugness as motivation. She's determined to prove him wrong, to show him that she can do this.
She continues to work with the clay, her concentration deepening. Slowly, miraculously, the wobbly lump begins to transform into something resembling a small bowl. It's not perfect, not by a long shot, but it's a bowl. A real bowl.
And a small smile spreads across Amelia's face. She's starting to get it. She's starting to see the potential in the clay, and, more importantly, the potential in herself.
Sarah, completely bewildered. Bewildered means totally confused, stared at the lump of clay. It just sat there, stubbornly refusing to transform into the elegant swan she'd envisioned. She glanced at David, who seemed to be conjuring a miniature Mount Rushmore out of his clay. How was he doing that?
David, noticing her struggle, gave her a reassuring smile. He whispered, "Don't try to force it. Coax it." Coax means to gently persuade or guide. Think of it like guiding a little cloud into the shape you want. He demonstrated a gentle kneading technique. See? Small, patient movements.
Sarah tried to mimic his movements. Like this? She asked, her brow furrowed in concentration. The clay, however, seemed to have a mind of its own, stubbornly resisting her attempts to mold it. She sighed, feeling a surge of frustration.
Exactly, David encouraged, chuckling. He pointed to a small, almost unnoticeable, dent he'd made in his clay. See this tiny dip? That's going to be the eye socket of my… well, you'll see. He winked, adding an air of mystery. It's all about the details.
Sarah squinted at her own amorphous blob. Details, she repeated, trying the word out. Right. Details. She took a deep breath and began to poke tentatively at the clay, trying to create, well, something. Anything.
Let's look at some of the words and phrases we've encountered. Bewildered, as we mentioned, means completely confused or puzzled. Imagine seeing a magic trick and having no idea how it's done. You'd be bewildered.
And coax, which means to gently persuade. You might coax a shy animal out of hiding with a treat, or coax a friend into joining you for a movie. It's about gentle encouragement.
Then we had conjuring, which implies creating something seemingly out of nothing, as if by magic. David seemed to be conjuring his sculpture with amazing skill. And finally, amorphous, which describes something without a clear shape or form, like Sarah's initial attempt with the clay.
Okay, so, let's quickly recap the story so far. Remember, Sarah, our protagonist, had never painted before, and she felt very intimidated by the talented artists in her class. The challenge was to create a piece representing freedom, a pretty abstract concept, right?
Exactly. She struggled at first, comparing herself to others and getting frustrated with her initial attempts. She even considered giving up, which is a feeling I think many of our listeners can relate to when trying something new. It can be quite daunting.
Absolutely. But then, she remembered her grandfather's advice: true freedom comes from within. That gave her a new perspective. Instead of focusing on the external pressure, she turned inwards for inspiration.
Yes, and that's when she started experimenting with different textures and colors, expressing her own emotions rather than trying to replicate something perfect. She used vibrant blues and greens, which contrasted strongly with the earthy browns and reds used by many other students. It made her work stand out.
She wasn't trying to be free. She was expressing her own feeling of freedom through the process of creation itself. Remember the swirling brush strokes we talked about? They represented the release of her anxieties, a kind of liberation. It's a nice metaphor, don't you think?
Definitely. It shows how art can be a powerful tool for self-discovery. It's not just about the final product, it's about the journey of creation.
So, during the final critique, Sarah was nervous, naturally. Many students presented realistic landscapes or symbolic figures, traditional representations of freedom. Sarah's piece, however, was completely abstract. It was bold and, well, a little messy.
And remember how Mr. Henderson, the teacher, approached her painting? He took his time, studying the textures, the colors, the movement. The suspense was palpable, wasn't it? Everyone was watching, wondering what he would say about such an unconventional piece.
He then asked Sarah to explain her work. She talked about her initial struggle and the inspiration she drew from her grandfather's words. She explained how the act of painting itself became her expression of freedom.
And that's the key moment, isn't it? Mr. Henderson smiled and praised her courage for embracing her own unique perspective. He emphasized that true art comes from honest expression, not technical skill alone. Technique, he said, can be learned, but authentic voice, that's something special.
Exactly. He saw beyond the perceived messiness and recognized the raw emotion and the powerful message she conveyed. Sarah's painting wasn't just about freedom, it was an embodiment of it. A pretty powerful lesson for everyone in the class, and for us too.
And even though she didn't win the competition, Sarah's experience was a victory in itself. She discovered her own artistic voice, overcame her self-doubt, and ultimately, found the freedom she was seeking. It's a wonderful story about embracing the creative process and finding your own expression.
Thanks for listening to English Boost. Remember, practice a little every day and you'll see big results. See you in the next episode.